I'm Veronica Dudo in Washington, D.C. Tonight on EWTN News Nightly.
Just shortly after the program began, we heard about 3 to 4 shots.
It's unbelievable. My heart's racing fast.
Dinner shooting, investigators scrutinize security failures and the suspect's motives as Saturday's shooting probe intensifies. How the political world reacts. Royal reset. King Charles arrives in Washington to mend fraying U.S.-UK ties amid the escalating conflict in Iran. A difficult path, a historic encounter between Pope Leo XIV and the first female Archbishop of Canterbury highlights continuing challenges to unity. And divine calling. The Holy Father leads global prayer for vocations, urging youth to discover God's gift through interior silence and the path of the Good Shepherd. These stories and more tonight.
From EWTN, the Global Catholic Network, this is EWTN News Nightly.
Thank you for being with us on the Feast of Our Lady of Montserrat. We begin tonight with the fallout from Saturday night's attack on the White House Correspondents Association dinner at the Washington Hilton. What started as a normal event turned into a terrifying evening. Secret Service rushed President Trump out, as well as the vice president and many cabinet members. Now the question is how the armed suspect got so close to the Hilton ballroom with a shotgun, a handgun, and knives. Our EWTN journalists, including myself, were there when the situation unfolded.
Just shortly after the program began, we heard about 3 to 4 shots. Literally, EWTN's table was at the back of the room, so it was right over my right-hand shoulder, and that's when we ended up hearing the shots.
Get down, get down, get down. Get down! Get down! Come, get down, get down! Get down!
Hi everyone, Owen Jensen here at the WHCA dinner. Earlier, just a short while ago, multiple shots were fired, dove under the table along with my wife. It's unbelievable. My heart's racing fast, let me just say that.
One Secret Service member was shot while trying to stop the armed suspect. He survived due to his vest. Thankfully, the suspect was caught before he made it into the ballroom. The California man arrested in the shooting incident at the WHCA dinner made his first court appearance today. Cole Thomas Allen described himself as a friendly federal assassin. White House correspondent Owen Jensen continues our team coverage. Owen, thankfully, we made it out safely following the incident.
Well, that's right, Veronica, absolutely. In fact, I'm sorry that you and so many others there, including myself, had to experience that fear and that chaos. It was absolutely awful. But we know that God is always with us. Now, fast forward to today, just a few days later, the suspect appeared in court for his arraignment, and earlier today I was able to ask the press secretary about the attack.
This afternoon, the 31-year-old suspect arrives at court. He was charged with the attempted assassination of President Donald Trump and will remain behind bars as the case moves forward. Not long after the incident at the Hilton, the president held a news conference back at the White House, praising law enforcement. He asked Americans to resolve their differences peacefully and urged that the event be held again soon.
We're not going to let anybody take over our society. We're not going to cancel things out because we can't do that.
Good afternoon, everyone.
In the briefing room today, Karoline Leavitt updated reporters.
Karoline, all those people forced to dive under tables and fearing for their lives on Saturday night, including many of the people in this room, myself included. What is the president's message to those people who experienced that terrible trauma and maybe are still fearful today?
I think he would say, as he sort of did on Saturday night, coming in here in his tuxedo, we can't allow these crazy people to let us be afraid. We have to keep moving forward, showing up, doing our job, celebrating our country, and doing what we know is right.
The accused attacker, a tutor and computer engineer from California, in a message sent to family members minutes before the attack, he railed against recent actions taken by the U.S. government under President Trump, though he did not name the president directly.
Get down! Get down! Get down!
Security at the event also coming under intense scrutiny. Questions remain over how the suspect, who was stopped, was still able to get so close.
We're always looking for ways to improve security. I think if you just sit here and say everything is perfect all the time, that's not a good way to operate.
And the press secretary also told me today that President Trump is following the arraignment of the suspect, and this is the third assassination attempt on President Trump in just a couple of years, and the president says he knows he has a dangerous job, but he accepts it. Veronica?
And Owen, Karoline Leavitt herself was supposed to be on maternity leave, right?
Yeah, you'll recall just last week she told reporters, this was her last press briefing. She did what they call a gaggle on the North Lawn, a quick back and forth with reporters. But and Saturday night happened, of course, and she felt it was prudent, in her words, to be back here today addressing reporters and addressing the American nation, the U.S., about how this administration is reacting to another attempt on the president's life. Veronica?
Thank you, Owen. The security fallout from the dinner is reverberating through the halls of Congress. At least a dozen lawmakers were there, as well as most of the president's cabinet members. They are all asking about security for the event. Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales was also at the dinner and joins us now. Eric, this was a scary experience for all of us.
It certainly was, Veronica, and thanks be to God that we all walked away unhurt. Now, here's a picture of the ballroom, folks, just before the event started. Little did we know how the night would end. Now, meanwhile, up on Capitol Hill, Congress is now under even more pressure to pass the Homeland Security Funding Bill, a bill that would fund agencies vital to keeping the president safe, like Secret Service.
It's urgent. As the Secretary of Homeland has said, we're out of money. He's out of money at the end of this week. And so Democrats have been playing games with this. It's very dangerous, as demonstrated Saturday night. We got to get the job done.
Many lawmakers are also questioning why so many of the president's cabinet and senior lawmakers were in one room.
You had the president and the vice president at the head table, both of them together, and the Speaker of the House. Had an explosive device gone off, you would have knocked out the president, vice president, speaker, the three in line of succession.
You okay, Steve? Okay.
Majority Leader Steve Scalise helped another member get out of the event safely.
My table was by the exit, as it turns out. That was fortunate. And so I saw them getting Steve. And so I popped up and said, Steve, can I come with you? And he said to his detail, he's a member, grab him. And, Steve grabbed me and put me into the secure room with him.
Several lawmakers now want a bipartisan commission to look at political violence, specifically on social media. They add U.S. adversaries like China and Russia are using it to incite violence among Americans.
We're seeing people who are committing these horrible acts have behavioral health and other challenges, stability issues in their lives. And now we have platforms that can focus on them at state actors, terrorist organizations fomenting hate in this country.
House Freedom Caucus members add the shooting is another reason for building the new White House ballroom. The Justice Department gave the National Trust for Historic Preservation a 9 a.m. deadline today to drop its lawsuit over the president's $400 million privately funded project. But the organization rejected the request.
It is important to note that the new White House ballroom, when complete, will only hold about 1,000 people, much less than the Washington Hilton ballroom, which has a maximum capacity of about 3,000. House Republican leaders are also talking about creating a special committee to investigate the shooting and security lapse around the dinner. And the House Oversight, Homeland Security, and the Senate Judiciary Committees have all requested briefings from the Secret Service about the incident. So, Veronica, a lot of questions still need to be answered in the next few weeks.
Thanks, Eric. Joining us now to discuss what happened at the White House Correspondents Association dinner over the weekend, we are pleased to welcome Matthew W. Daugherty, who served with the United States Secret Service for 21 years and was the special agent in charge of the National Threat Assessment Center. Matthew, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Now, I attended the event over the weekend. I had to show my ticket. My purse was checked. I went through the metal detectors. The President of the United States was attending, as well as the Vice President and several members of the cabinet were in the ballroom. You have over 20 years of Secret Service experience. How did the shooter manage to get so close to the main ballroom?
It is quite surprised me. It did surprise me to get through a security checkpoint like that. At no time was the inner perimeter in danger. And we have three circles of security: the outer perimeter, the middle perimeter, and the inner perimeter. And in that outer to middle perimeter, that's where the breach took place. It was at a main security checkpoint. And you were there in person. I've worked that event many, many times. I've looked at the video dozens of times this morning. What is surprising is that security checkpoint. Was there a semblance of tables and security and magnetometers at the time of that breach for them to come in? And couldn't agree more. The hotel, that's a tough venue to do because you have guests, they run a business all across the country. Protectees of the Secret Service, State Department, et cetera, are at ballrooms. It's a political event for the White House Correspondents Association. So where are you going to get a ballroom? The most common venue is a hotel, and you can't just shut down guests at the hotel. So you try to wall that off from guest access.
What do you make of the president, the first lady, the vice president, and so many members of the cabinet all being together in the same location?
It's a risk. It's definitely a high risk. And, hotel ballrooms, perhaps that should be rethought in the future. Now, again, Secret Service protocols for cover and evacuate worked. Secret Service works in very close concert with cabinet secretary detail leaders, governor's detail leaders. Everybody knew where to go. They just didn't crowd. The president had his own designated area for evacuation that I'm very familiar with at that particular hotel. But it's a coordinated effort. Who goes where to get them out of the building? But I think in the future, you're going to see hotel ballrooms with a continuity of government like that. That'll be a consideration for future events like that.
If we pivot just for a moment, given that King Charles III is visiting from the UK this week, will extra security measures now be going into place?
Extra security? I don't think so. I think there'll be, there's already indications the White House is going to meet with the Secret Service. Moving forward, how can we do things better? But the resources are there. I can assure the American public and you as a participant, the resources are there, the protocols are there to ensure the safety of our protectees and our continuity of government.
Matthew, thank you so much for your insight and clearly some lessons to be learned here.
Thank you very much for having me.
Iran has made a new offer that would reopen the Strait of Hormuz after planned peace talks failed over the weekend. The Islamic Republic is offering to end its chokehold on the strait, but hasn't addressed its nuclear program. It also wants the U.S. to end its blockade of the country. However, the proposal is likely to be rejected by President Trump, who wants the country's atomic program to end. This comes as Iran's foreign minister arrived in Russia today to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin about the war.
The incorrect approaches and excessive demands of the United States caused the previous round of talks, despite some progress, to fail to achieve its goals. Therefore, it was necessary to consult and review the current situation with our friends in Pakistan.
In the wake of the stalled peace talks, oil prices hit a 3-week high. Brent crude was up to nearly $108 a barrel. Meanwhile, Iran warned Sunday that the Strait of Hormuz will not return to its pre-war state. Nearly a fifth of the world's oil and natural gas supplies pass through the waterway. The Israeli army has released a new video showing what it says is the destruction of Hezbollah infrastructure in southern Lebanon. The IDF issued evacuation warnings to residents in southern villages before launching artillery and aerial strikes. At least 14 people were killed in the strikes. Footage also showed a brigade discovering rifles and missile launchers stashed under toys in a child's room. The escalation took place despite a fragile ceasefire between Israel and Lebanon extended just days earlier. Officials in Ukraine say Russian forces launched a massive overnight attack on residential neighborhoods and civilian infrastructure in the southern port city of Odessa.
Russia again attacked Odessa in large numbers with strike drones. The housing sector suffered significant damage. Flats in the 3-story apartment building were destroyed and caught on fire. The hotel was almost destroyed. A car parked next to it was burning. Trucks were burning at the same address. Countryside houses were burning.
Authorities in Ukraine say 14 people were wounded in the drone attack, including 2 children. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says Russia has fired approximately 1,900 attack drones on various types at Ukraine over the past week. The U.S. military has struck another alleged drug boat, killing 3 in the eastern Pacific Ocean. U.S. Southern Command did not confirm the presence of drugs on the boat, but said the vessel was participating in narco-trafficking operations. A total of 186 people have been killed in U.S. strikes as part of its crackdown on drugs, which began last September. Virginia's Supreme Court heard arguments for and against redistricting in the Commonwealth. The new maps won voter approval last week, which could net the Democrats for additional seats in the House. A Republican challenge cited a violation of procedural rules that placed the amendment before voters to allow redistricting mid-decade. If ruled unconstitutional, the amendment would be invalidated. This as the Supreme Court formally reinstated a redrawn Texas electoral map that could give Republicans up to 5 more seats in the House. We have a lot more still to come on EWTN News Nightly Alliance Reboot. King Charles III visits Washington today to mend the historic relationship. And sacred solidarity, ancient walls witness a profound embrace as 2 faiths seek common ground. King Charles III has arrived in Washington, D.C. for a 4-day state visit marking the 250th anniversary of American independence. It is being described as a significant diplomatic test for the monarch. The visit comes during a period of reported friction between the two nations over military and foreign policy. The king is scheduled to hold a private meeting with President Trump and will deliver a historic address to a joint meeting of Congress. While the tour includes ceremonial stops in New York and Virginia, the primary focus remains on soft power diplomacy. Both governments hope the visit will reinforce the long-standing security and economic ties of the special relationship. Dr. Craig Prescott, a constitutional law expert at Royal Holloway University of London, joins us to break down the significance of this trip. Thank you so much for your time.
Not a problem. Good to join you.
So before we begin, we have to, look at some of the things that have changed for this diplomatic mission. Is it worth discussing whether what happened at the White House Correspondents' Dinner will faze the king at all, or, is there any concern from the palace?
I generally don't think the palace or the king will be too concerned. The security aspects of the trip will have been very carefully thought through beforehand. The palace will have visited Washington and New York and everywhere where the king is going to go and have all of that in hand well ahead of the visit. There might be some tweaks that are made in light of the events on Saturday evening, but I think in general, from the British side, it'll be business as usual.
Can you discuss what some of the goals will be for this royal visit?
So I think there's essentially 2 goals here. The first is to emphasize the links between the US and the UK in the context of it being the 250th anniversary of independence, and to show that the UK and the US have a long-lasting and enduring relationship. And I imagine that's what the King's address to Congress will be about. But clearly you can't ignore the present difficulties between the UK and the US and the difference of approach over the war in Iran. And, I think, the King might be able to put across the UK government's perspective and perhaps help President Trump and the administration understand where Britain is coming from on this issue.
What message does this send to other nations when we see the UK deploying the monarchy to engage with the president?
It's sort of something that the UK does to, many countries. And I think it's a sign that the UK thinks that you are a close ally of the country. So we've seen the King in Italy and Germany and France in recent years, as well as Kenya for that matter. So I think it's a signal that the UK views you as a close ally, close enough to be worthy of a visit by the King.
Dr. Craig Prescott, thank you for joining us.
Not a problem. Good to join you.
From the Supreme Governor of the Church of England to its spiritual leader, the recently installed Archbishop of Canterbury. Today, Pope Leo XIV held a private audience with the Most Reverend and Right Honorable Dame Sarah Mullally. The Holy Father expressed his joy to receive the Archbishop during the Easter season. He also recalled the decades of effort and dialogue between Catholics and Anglicans in order to restore complete communion in faith and sacramental life. Pope Leo said it would be a scandal if the two churches did not work together to overcome their differences. The two also prayed together. We spoke with some of the priests and ministers in Rome working towards Christian unification about the meeting.
Whenever the Pope meets the Archbishop of Canterbury, good things happen, I believe.
I think part of her visit is not only about relationships between Catholics and Anglicans, but what does it mean for the entire Christian church?
Joining us now is Father James Bradley, Assistant Professor at the School of Canon Law at the Catholic University of America. Thank you so much for coming on.
Delighted.
What is the significance of this meeting, and how often have popes met with leaders of the Anglican Communion?
Well, the most famous interaction between the Pope and an Archbishop of Canterbury was between Paul VI and Michael Ramsey 60-something years ago at this point. And today's meeting is really in the same spirit. It's particularly striking that the last three Archbishops of Canterbury have all been appointed at about the same time that we've had a new Pope. So you had Rowan Williams and Pope Benedict, Justin Welby and Pope Francis, and now Dame Sarah Mullally and Pope Leo XIV.
Pope Leo noted today that while much progress has been made on some historically divisive issues, new problems have arisen in recent decades, making the pathway to full communion more difficult to discern. What are some of those issues?
Well, I think since the early part of this century, the Anglican Communion has moved away from positions that it held in common with the Catholic Church, or at least partly in common with the Catholic Church, on matters of faith and morals. We think particularly here of the ordination of women to the priesthood and to the episcopate, and also same-sex marriage and so on and so forth, in different ways and to different degrees, depending on the different provinces of the Anglican Communion. But those issues have certainly become a stumbling block to the realization of full and visible communion. I think what Pope Leo really sought to underscore today is that despite these difficulties, we have a responsibility to pray together, to work together, and to witness together to our faith in Jesus Christ.
Given that reality, what can be done practically towards achieving unity?
Well, from my own perspective, as a priest of the personal ordinariate of Our Lady of Walsingham, I would see the ordinariate as a really wonderful example of realized ecumenism, as we like to say. The ordinariate was set up by Pope Benedict to allow Anglicans to enter the Catholic Church whilst bringing elements of the Anglican tradition with them. And so if you want to see what Christian unity between Anglicans and Catholics can look like, I think the ordinariate is a pretty good example.
Father James Bradley, thank you.
Thanks, Veronica. God bless.
Up next on EWTN News Nightly, ordained by the Pope, Pope Leo XIV celebrates the World Day of Prayer for Vocations with 10 new priests. Yesterday, Pope Leo celebrated Mass on the World Day of Prayer for Vocations and ordained 10 new priests inside St. Peter's Basilica, offering them some words of advice and encouragement.
This is one secret for the life of the priest. Dear Ordinans, the deeper your bond with Christ, the more radical your belonging to all of humanity. There is no opposition nor competition between heaven and earth. In Jesus, they are united forever. This living and dynamic mystery binds the heart to an indissoluble love. It binds and fills it.
The Pope described priesthood as a ministry of communion. He stressed that a close relationship with Christ does not distance priests from others, but deepens their connection to all people. In a context where many people feel distant from the church, he encouraged them to keep doors open and to be ready both to welcome and to go out. In the Easter season, instead of the Angelus, the Pope delivers the Regina Caeli on Sundays. This week, he reminded pilgrims gathered in St. Peter's Square that Christ is the way to true abundance.
Today, the gospel invites us to trust in the Lord. He does not come to take anything from us. On the contrary, he is the good shepherd who increases life and offers it to us in abundance.
The Pope also marked the 40th anniversary of the nuclear disaster at Chernobyl, praying that all use of atomic energy may be put to service of life and peace. We thank you for watching tonight. Remember, you can follow us on social media, Facebook, X, and Instagram at EWTN News Nightly. I'm Veronica Dudo. Good night and God bless.